All right. I got my coffee. We're ready to go. Joe, what was your question? We were talking about visual system and thinking clearly with Zoe. Was it related to that?
Yeah, you were talking about that all takes place in the visual system. So I was saying, what are you saying about me?
See clearly, you think clearly.
See clearly, think clearly.
That's what I'm saying.
That's why we're doing this vision challenge.
That's right. And seeing clearly, I should qualify, does not just mean visual acuity. It also means having clear proprioceptive maps for your eyeballs. And um, you know, clear vision, which vision is has almost nothing to do with visual acuity, right? I mean vision in the like not imaginative, but like what's the word I'm looking for? The motivating sense, the clear goals sense, the purposeful sense, having a vision is probably we're getting like totally out of the visual system now. But having a vision in the context of like, motivation and goals and flow states is the easiest way to lower cognitive load. And when you lower cognitive load, you don't have to fight so hard to, keep distractions at bay and you know what to do next. So, you want to talk about like reducing threat. If you can lower the amount of cognitive load that you have on yourself at any one time, that's can be kind of freeing. Feels good.
I like how you say that feels good being a father of triplets right now,
Well, that feels good.
right? Focus, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's true. If you want to instill some purpose in your life, have triplets. It's easy.
It's easy. You make
I
it.
mean, yeah, I guess I could just be a deadbeat and not not care about my kids, but I don't know. I don't think that's wired in my biology.
No.
I don't think so. I don't think even if I tried, I could do that. So I will say this though, because this is a common thing, and it's something that I fought against tooth and nail, and it's why I had kids at 38. Technically, I was 37, but it was my 38th year. Um, so when I'll tell a little story. When I first started my journey back to health. Um, Side note, that's why my business is actually called Odyssey Health. If anybody did not know that, my
Hmm.
actual business, my LLC is Odyssey Health. And it's because my favorite book in high school was The Odyssey, and I viewed my journey to try to find my way back to like healthy, my, best self, all that stuff as an epic journey, an odyssey. And it was like, I was a decade in at that point trying to figure things out. And that's what it felt like. So that's why I named my company that. But anyway, in that journey, at the beginning of it, when I started to discover flow states, and even before that, I knew I had like lost my identity. I knew that there was a piece of my identity, and it was a big part of it, being an athlete and everything, that was like yanked out from under me. Um, and so I kind of went on this journey of like, what does it mean to have and lose identity, and how do people go through these transitions and work their way out of it? And I stumbled across some research that was really interesting about identity, and there was four different. It was like a quadrant. There was four different types of identity, um, and the transition. And one of them was like a total loss of identity. Somebody who was completely lost, didn't identify with anything, and just kind of just wandered through the world. And these are people that are like really easily manipulated. Because if you can help them identify with something, you can get them to do anything almost. It's like these are people that easily fall into like cults because we all need this. We all need some sort of um and call it ego, call it whatever you want, but we function by way of different identifiers. Um, the easiest of which, well, I shouldn't say that these days, but one of the easiest of which used to be gender. Like it's pretty easy to know whether you're a male or female. Um, and political ideologies and stuff aside, right? That's a lot of times you identify with one of those groups. These days, not so much, and that's a whole different discussion. But used to be one of the easier ones. By getting involved in a religion or being born into one um, is an identifying group, right? We identify as being Christian, Islamic, Jewish. Um, my buddy started a religion, Pastafarian. You heard of that one? Friend of mine started a religion so that he could wear a colander as a hat on his driver's license. He's a Pastafarian. True story. True story. Anyway, I digress. We all identify with these things, and if you don't have anything that you identify with, it's easy to feel like ostracized or not ostracized really, but outside of the group. So there's like an evolutionary reason why we create these identities. But anyway, if you don't have one, you're easily manipulated. That's one portion. On the top right, like the ideal is that we have an exploratory identity. It means that we have done the work to explore and discover who we are authentically, and we have developed an identity because of through that process. Down here, and I don't remember what the qualifiers were. I'll have to look up this research again. Um, was like a well, up here was identity moratorium. And that was somebody that was, in a way, just voluntold or given an identity, and they didn't get to question it. They just went with it. An example of this is, so this happens actually to a lot of wealthy kids. They are thrust into an identity. They don't explore anything outside of it. They just go with the program. Kids that take over their parents' businesses. This happens to a lot. Or they're just decided. Your path is decided for you. Um, Usually that creates some kind of like midlife crisis because they never did the exploring to find out what they actually want from life and to discover their own kind of purpose and what gives them meaning and fulfillment. Um, I forget what that bottom right one is, but the moratorium one was the one I was most fascinated with because that was kind of the place where I was like trying to explore and figure out what I wanted out of my life. And I really did not want to take the traditional route, go to college, get a job in medical device sales, which was, or be a physical therapist. Like these were like the laid out, well-worn paths that a lot of my teammates and friends and stuff were taking. And they're doing great, by the way. Most of them are doing just fine, but many of them fell into this trap of just like, well, that's what people do, so I'm just going to go do that. The other big one, which sparked this whole conversation, was having kids and taking their identity, say mine was an athlete, and then just immediately shifting that into uh, being a parent. And the danger with that is then all the things that were left unsaid and left undone in their life that they didn't explore, now they channel that through their children. And they put the pressure on their kids to do all the things that they didn't do. That's the danger there, and I did not want that. So I floundered around and wandered like Alice in Wonderland, for a decade trying to figure out what was it that I truly wanted out of my life and all this stuff. And, I still don't fully know. I'll be honest. Like, it's a process. I think it'll be a process till the day that I leave this earthly plane, and I'm fine with that. That's the important thing for me is like I'm fine with it. I have enough. Um, I know enough of who I am, and I have enough of these number one, like separation from the identities that I've carried around so long and knowing that they're not truly who I am. They're just functions of my ego that help me get through the world. And that's fine. And I can have many of them. I don't have to identify with any one thing. Great. So I've done the work to do that. And then I had kids. And so because I've done a lot of that exploring ahead of time, I feel really confident now that I won't, you know, try to do that through my children and have them try to fill that void. So I'm happy that I took that time to do that. Um, However, I 100% identify now as a father and a triplet father, right? Which is another identifier. And it has given me an incredible amount of purpose, and the fulfillment grows every day too. So I feel pretty good with where I'm at with it.
A flip side that you didn't cover about the people who have kids is that also, like, I've seen it from the perspective where they have that focus. Like
Mhm.
maybe they do some of that other stuff and put it on them or not putting it on them, but it's interesting just to see where the kid piece creates that focus and a new identity, right? Like I'm a father now.
Yeah. 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 And that's something to be said too about a lot of things, including stuff like depression. A lot of times, depression specifically can be a very much um, let's not use the word selfish, but inwardly focused, right? But one of the quickest ways to get out of that is to shift your focus into something external. It may not get rid of the root problem initially, but it might allow you the space to get out of your head and out of this rumination pattern and to focus on something outward and go help somebody else. And through that, you start to heal yourself. And then you have the capacity then to deal with whatever may be the root cause in there for depression specifically. But it works in lots of other things. Like if we can focus on something outside of ourselves, and this is like the whole intrinsic drive conversation, right? First, we have curiosity, and then we have passion, and the things that we're really curious about, and that when they start to overlap. But in order to find purpose and turn that passion, which is very much selfish, because it's all about us and what we want, into purpose, we have to make it about something bigger than ourselves. And if you don't have that big, like global changing, like changing the face of the world by solving world hunger or, fixing the mental health crisis or, healing and getting every veteran, the services that they need and whatever that is for you. Um, Having children who are completely and 100% dependent upon you is a really easy way to give yourself some purpose and make it about something other than outside of yourself. So yeah, my business originally, like my big purpose, my massively transformative purpose with the business was to help people like me. So to essentially um, help a million um, what I call modern mavericks, which are just like, thought leaders, athletes, entrepreneurs, healers to find their own purpose and flow in order to heal themselves and um, um, by that consequence then heal many of them around them, and just essentially like to make it even bigger, like raise the actual vibration of human consciousness to its next step in evolution. That was like the big dreamy purpose. And that's great, that was helpful in driving me forward. But it wasn't quite as real as having a bunch of kids. And I don't know about having one, but having three made it really real. Because I see the struggle that goes on every single day, and that drives me big time too. To be able to provide not even just the financial, but the resources to have more people and more help to, make sure that we all um, can be the best that we can.
Good thing they got a neurotrainer in their life.
I mean, don't we all need one?
Yeah.
I need one. Hey, Zo. Enzo. Cool. Well, that got real deep real quick. I love it.
Yeah, that
These
was
are
cool. I like the piece about
might need to mute one of you, so I'm gonna mute that one.
both
Right
of
now
them.
you're muted.
Uh just the identity piece though, like thinking through kind of some of those different connection pieces to identity. So I feel like you got pretty deep a long time ago.
I did, yeah. Um, it was fascinating stuff. Yeah, it was fascinating to read and to get into. But at a certain point, it was kind of like, yeah, this is cool, but it's not everything. Something's still missing. And it was flow states for anybody that's wondering. For me, it was when I discovered like flow as a state. It's like that is the thing. Um, the identity pieces, we're always going through that. I mean, I identified solely as an athlete, not solely, but very much so early on because that's where I got the most praise and the most um, you know, that's where I was noticed. That's where but I also I did not identify actually as a good student because I didn't want to be known as a goody two shoes, but I was a good student. I got mostly A's without even trying, so there's a weird thing there that was like, um, don't live up to your potential because that's not cool. I don't know what the identity piece was there, but identity is a thing that we're all constantly shaping, and it changes our perception based on how we identify, which groups we identify with, which ones we don't. And it can get a little dangerous because it's a separator, but it does have its uses.
Well, it's the neuroplasticity of it too. Like how many people actually put themselves in different environments where they could be perceived as having a different identity versus if someone just is they do the same things over and over again inside of their community and they don't really explore or experience different aspects of stuff, then their identity can be really rooted really easily versus challenged because of a different experience where they would have never have thought themselves to be perceived like that.
Yeah. So you're kind of getting also into um, mindset, psychology, like growth mindset, fixed mindset, internal versus external locus of control. Like, do I actually have control over my environment? Do I not? If you identify as a victim, you probably don't feel like you have a lot of control over your environment and everything is being done to you. You're oppressed and all this stuff. And um, that can be damaging, Whereas if you identify as a go-getter, a world shaker that, can do whatever they put their mind to, that's going to shift things in the way you believe and what you believe is possible. The other piece that you made me think of, I forget now. It'll come back to me. But I did a training in the paid community yesterday on the belief spotlight. You guys ever heard of that term? It's kind of just how it sounds. Like you can think of your belief as a spotlight showing you what possibilities are available to you. And so if you have limited beliefs and you think in a, small way, then you are going to have limited possibilities available to you. Whereas if you have expanded beliefs and you have a big, wide spotlight, you're going to see a lot more opportunities. The example is, you got three people, and they all want to increase their income in the next year. We'll call them Mrs. 2X, Mrs. 10X, and Mrs. 100X. Mrs. 2X, they all do the same business. They all have the same education. They all have the same access to resources at the start. Mrs. 2X is going to be thinking like, well, what can I do to double my income this year? Well, I could, yeah, I mean, I could just see more clients. That would get me there. All right, great. That'll get me to 2X. I'm done. Mrs. 10X, she's got to think a little bigger. Like, I'm not going to be able to see that many clients. I don't have that much time. So what am I going to do? Well, I'm gonna need to raise my prices then, and I'm gonna have to find premium clients that will pay premium prices. Okay, great. I'm also gonna make my service into a course, so I can create a product that I can sell to people. All right, nice. That's enough to get me to 10x my revenue in this year. Those two people, they don't even think about some of the other ways because it's not even within their realm of possibility. But when you get to Mrs. 100x, to 100x the amount of revenue that you bring in 1 year, there's not enough clients that you could see. You don't have the time, number one. And you couldn't charge enough to 100x. Nobody's going to pay those type of prices, right? Unless you solve a much bigger problem or you hire a team that can help you and can help coach more clients. You take that product that you've made out of your service and you license that intellectual property to a huge company and they spread it to the masses. Or you take on seed money from venture capitalists or angel investors, or you bring on a really powerful partner that can fill in the gaps and can really help you scale. Somebody thinking at the 2x level is not even gonna consider any of those things. Bring on a partner? Why would I ever do that? License my IP, productize my service? No, I don't need to do any of that. I just want to get to 2x. So they didn't even think about it, right? So again, what you believe is possible. If you don't believe that you could ever get to 100x, you would never even think of any of that. If you only believe that you are able to maybe make double, then you will only believe that you are able to do these certain things that will get you there. I did this with one of my clients a couple years ago, and he was starting a new business, and it was a business with a lot of potential, and he was trying to figure out how to make it grow and grow faster. And we just sat down and did this exercise. Like, what would it look like if you had to 100x your revenue this year? And he immediately stopped all the thinking he was doing about getting out there and marketing more, getting out on the streets and meeting more people, going to more networking events and building relationships and making these flyers and like seeing more patients in his business and all this stuff. And immediately he's like, oh, well, he had a couple ideas, and then he was like, oh, and I should call so and so and see if I could somehow work with him because he's got a huge amount. And I'm like, bingo, call him right now. He called him that day and he 10x'd his revenue in one day. Like brought in a whole new um, revenue stream from a like different area of the business that he didn't even think about creating until he talked to this person and started to work out a partnership with them in that thing. So it's just the power of thinking outside the box maybe or thinking bigger. It's a powerful exercise. Um, and it kind of all goes back to an identity piece too. Like if you don't see yourself as a um, person who can make that kind of money, if you don't believe that that's like in the cards for you, then you will stay stuck at the level where you believe you should be. It's a manifestation 101, law of attraction, secret, whatever. But it comes down to like actual neurological processes that you can train by doing some simple thought experiments. And so it's especially useful for those of us that work in these kind of service-based businesses that are kind of solo in nature, solopreneurs and stuff. If you actually want to scale and find freedom in your business so that you can work more on your business instead of in it, then you have to start thinking bigger and you have to imagine who is that person that I need to become that can handle that. Um, and what are the steps that would need to be taken? It's been kind of a struggle for me, like because I kind of like doing it solo, and I like not answering to anybody and not having to manage people. But really, that's just an old like identity piece of being an introvert and being kind of a lone wolf that I've kind of always held on to just because I have fear rejection and failure in some way. Um, and probably a control thing too. But the interesting thing is that I've played on sports teams and been the captain of teams and managed dozens and dozens of employees in film businesses and stuff like that and loved it. So it's weird how those identities kind of take root and they can inform and sabotage future success. So I've been trying to deal with that and hopefully hiring my first employee in this business this week, which will be a shift. I will then shift from a solopreneur to a actual entrepreneur that manages people. And I'll be able to build the business a lot faster. So, yippee. Um, Go ahead, Zoe. I've been talking, just rambling for 30 minutes. Please shut me up.
And part of that identity for a parent, at least I know for mine, they had to also make choices on how they use their time so that they didn't lose time with their most precious resources, which is their children.
Exactly.
So, mhm.
Yeah, that's a big part of the push in the past couple months for me to find some help because I want that time back. That's the
Mhm.
biggest thing. Like I don't, you know, I got my own issues with money, but um, I don't view it as this. I used to view money as like a thing that you had to work hard for. And what I mean by that is like to make more money, mean you had to work harder. And that is a common money block that a lot of people have. Because especially now with AI and with our digital landscape, it's not true. Maybe you have to work hard in the beginning to build something. That's true. Like you got to build systems, you got to do that. But I know plenty of people. I have a uh, a mentor by proximity. He's not a direct mentor of mine, but I follow him and he works with some of my mentors. His name's Ted Carr. He's I don't know why you'd ever heard of him, but he's kind of a marketing guy. Helps coaches and consultants and people build businesses online. But he does that with a team and he doesn't actually work. Like maybe a few hours a week, 5 to 10. And that's mostly just him showing up and doing kind of group coaching calls and occasionally helping somebody one-on-one for a lot of money. But he's hired wonderful people that are hungry and ambitious and want to build their businesses too, and he pays them really well. And they have built him an incredible business. And he hardly did anything. He just brought the people together. So the idea that you have to work super hard to make more money is really not. That's it's a limiting belief. There are ways. One great book that we all as solopreneurs and lone wolves out there should read is by Benjamin Hardy, I think is the guy's name. Um, and it's Who, Not How. Who, not how. Like if you have an issue, have a problem in your business or otherwise, instead of asking, how do I fix this? Maybe ask yourself, who can fix this for me? Who can I pay to fix this? Who can I bring on to help me fix this? Because there's somebody out there that's probably an expert in that exact thing. So, yes, time is our most valuable resource. Sandra.
Hi, I'm kind of migraine-y today, so I'm on the quiet end. But what I'm thinking a lot about is also who you spend your time with. And
Mhm.
I'm thinking of like when I started teaching, and my first teaching and movement was through yoga. And the mindset of everyone was pretty much the same. It was very
Mhm.
small, and recognizing the importance of being with people who think differently has a huge impact. And that's
Huge.
one of the reasons I like participating here. And because also, I guess in the rabbinic communities I'm in, there's also these limiting beliefs about things. And
Mhm.
um, so I just wanted to put that out there, that that makes such a huge difference who we spend our time
Yeah.
with. I know there's a thing about the 5 closest people, you have to you and how that affects you in your life.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and
mm,
it's so true. Thank you for bringing it up because it shapes our identity in huge ways. Most of the time, it's totally unconscious to us, but um, one way that I sometimes describe this to people is if you've ever traveled, um, or well, the story that I tell is that I traveled to Central America for a month, mm, like a dozen years ago or something. And it was with like 4 other guys, and we just kind of just backpacked around Central America. Started in El Salvador, which I do not recommend. Um, it was one of the scarier places I've ever been to. But then we wandered our way around, took a bus down through Honduras, and ended up in Nicaragua. which at the time was super safe and beautiful and just wonderful people that live a very different life than we do. Um, the place that we stayed at was a hostel. It was an old converted like plantation type mansion. And there's like 40, young people staying there in their 20s and 30s. And it's run by a group of like 6 to 8 um like 23, 24-year-old women um and then a staff of locals. And they're from all over the world. Every place you can imagine. Like a lot from Europe, a bunch from South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, everywhere. And the longer we stayed there, the more I started to find myself mimicking the accents of the people I was around. You guys ever done that before? And it's like it's this weird like unconscious, well, it's not totally unconscious, but this weird thing that happens to us just as human beings. Well, this is how we learn, is we mimic and imitate. And what we don't realize is that that is happening all the time with our beliefs too and our values with the people that we are around the most. They start to like seep into us. And once they start to take root, then we start like not exposing, but we start puking them out on other people. Right? Um, and they're more insidious, they're trickier because they're so, it takes a little time and it's more unconscious. But that shift, that mimicking thing was the first time in my life that I really started to see like, whoa, this is weird. Just being around these people and I start to become more like them. That was the key in my brain where it was like, okay, I need to be careful about who I hang around with. And it's so, so true. The the other way to think about this is like if you're in a room and you're the smartest person in that room, you are in the wrong room, right? You need to be challenged if you want to continue growing into whoever that is. So the people you choose to hang around with should always stretch you in some way. Shaq, you guys know who Shaquille O'Neal is? Yeah, okay. He has a board of directors for his life, and he attributes them, it's like 5 to 7 of his most trusted advisors that all challenge him in specific ways, like relationships, business, career stuff, athletics. His mom's on that board. When he has big decisions, he goes to them and he tries to hang out with those people the most because they influence him in really positive ways and they are always making him stretch. And he attributes, like, Shaq's like a billionaire. He's owns many, many businesses, and he has been a true success story in the business side of pro sports, where there's so many horrible stories. But he attributes all of that success to those people that held him in check, kept asking questions, kept influencing him in positive ways. So there's a million stories of how it goes the other way. So you got to be careful who you're around because they will shape your identity for sure. Thanks for bringing that up, Sandra. Sorry you're dealing with the migraine. The same kind of thing, that not quite vestibular, but like the abdominal digestive kind of migraine.
It's both. It's like,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. I've using my tools, but
Getting any relief? Anything helping?
um, sleep.
Sleep.
So, um, I haven't actually this morning. I haven't used anything yet. So, um, biting, vibration, smelling, oil, and sometimes light touch in
Mm.
certain spots. That seems to help. But
Any
usually it works better if I catch it before it comes on.
yeah.
Once it's on, it's harder to manage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you can sleep it off if you have the
Thank you.
time and availability and you can get that sleep. Have you tried any trigeminal work?
Yeah, I haven't done a lot. I was doing some just light touch yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
but I haven't figured out like the sutures, and I haven't figured out which of that works for me yet.
Mm. Okay.
Or yeah, the direction. I haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah, I know those can be powerful. Um, yeah, I've been doing a lot more trigeminal sliding.
You turn your head one way as you take your jaw the other way.
The dog goes the other. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Oops, I didn't mean to. Yeah. Ooh. I didn't mean this one to be about me. Oh, that side's not nearly as good as this side. Yeah, that side's not great. I'll just hang out like this for a
There you go.
while.
You can do the nodding and stuff for the slacking on that side.
Yeah.
So, so Brandon, if one has issues with their body, just like we're talking about with vision, but if you have other things going on in your body that you want to work on, is one way of thinking about how to target it is to think of what spinal nerves or cranial nerves, or what do you look at to see on which way you would approach it?
You you can look at any of those.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
You kind of want to look at all of them.
you
Okay.
can look at all of them.
I mean, before you're narrowing it down to kind of figure it out, right? So you're kind of looking at all of them.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's why you take a history. That's why you do brain specific assessments like cerebellum, PMRF, that kind of stuff. Um, they're all just ways to narrow down a starting point and
Mm-hmm.
maybe help you choose where to go from there as well.
It's like the neurogate.
Yeah, that's why you do a gait assessment, you know. That's why you have all those assessments and frameworks, and they're all just ways to narrow down what to choose and where to go next. You can get to the level of like specific nerves, nucleus, spinal cord, pathways, that kind of stuff. And I know, in the mentorship, you'll talk about that stuff in fourth quarter, but it's not really necessary. It can be helpful. It can be helpful. And in some cases that are really nuanced, it might be more necessary, but for the majority of the time, it's not. They're just more options for you to think about how to help that person.
What have you found most useful? Like, do you have a general way you go? Or is it
Um,
I know it
yeah,
depends, but
it kind of does, but there is a general kind of flow that I like to follow. And um, it really starts kind of from the ground up. And that's assuming that they're kind of more of a bottom up person. And I know that. But even if they're not, I probably start ground up anyway. And so I work in um, proprioception and breathing first, and then I get to above the neck. Like that's the simplest thing that I always kind of do. Um, and I always try to get them out of neutral position,
Mm.
like as fast as possible. Like you can do the thing, great. Now let's do it in a different position. Because I see better results when I do that. And they last longer. Um, I'm trying to think of like the craziest ends of the spectrum as far as like the people that I work with. Because I work with like, professional athletes up to, I think my oldest client right now is 78, just because my 90-year-old client just moved back to New York, so I won't see her anymore.
Mm.
But they're all kind of the same as far as the first initial approach. And then it's just dialing back or up the challenge for that person. But we need to work on the same things. So I always start with proprioception, movement, and breathing because they're so fundamental to everything and how our brain works. Because remember, our brain is built for survival and then movement, those two. So I should say, if I need some like inhibition or regulation first, I will do that. But a lot of times that has sensory input in there and breathing anyway. But if we need some inhibition, I might throw that on first. Um, and then we quickly get to, um, exactly why they're there. And so from there, it goes to integration and then vision and vestibular. The things I see that work, like the biggest bang for your buck, more often than not, are a really precise movement drill in an area that they have very poorly mapped.
Mm.
If you can find one of those, that's always a good one. And then bouncing. For 90% of the people I've worked with, bouncing seems to be
Huh.
the one thing that they remember and do often and gives them positive reassessments. I don't know if that's like how it is for the rest of neurotrainers out in the world, but in my experience, in my short time, in 3 years of actually doing this, that's like the one drill that always, and for some reason, they always remember it too. Like, oh yeah, I always do that one. It's just so easy. And it just makes me feel so good. I think it's because we sit a lot and people aren't walking around as much. So their saccule is just not getting a lot of stimulation. I don't know.
Mm.
Um,
And so like using the rebounder, bouncing on the ball.
sure. Yeah, those are great. Yeah. I have a few clients that have rebounders and they love them. Um, yeah, so proprioception, breathing, and then and that's where it kind of it can take a turn because it's either pain or like performance for me. Most people come to me to get out of pain, but then I have a lot of, performance. So, and I say like losing weight, getting fit, or sports performance. Those all fall in the performance bucket. And so even if someone's just coming to me for like regular personal training, I just want to lose weight and get strong. We're going to do that proprioceptive stuff and breathing as a foundation, and then immediately get them into some workout like positions. And then when I see stuff, I will do the assessments first to see what's the thing, if any, that needs rehabbed that we can work on right now. But then I have to take them through their workouts, right? Because that's what they came there for. And so
Mm.
we get them out of that sport or out of the neutral position and into your workout stances. And like in rest periods or otherwise, we're doing in specific positions different vestibular and visual drills. And so that's the only way that I can sneak it in there if I'm not doing like a strictly neuro session. Which those are fun. I like those because you can get really deep and specific and precise. But I actually really like workout sessions too, where I'm taking somebody through like a whole bunch of workout drills or weightlifting or speed and agility drills. And then we just use neuro as like the performance enhancement drug to like get them going or to make big changes for them. So.
Can you do too much neuro? Like my client lives with me, and so doing something every day, 2 or 3 times a day, can that be too much?
It can, yeah. Yeah, for sure. You can do anything too much, especially vision training, because vision training is very
Yes.
energy consuming and neurologically demanding. So you can overdo it for sure. So you just want to keep watching for those threat responses and make sure they're kind of recovering well and they're not crashing and that kind of stuff.
But
Crashing, or what
but
about not sleeping?
Yeah, I would consider that not recovering well. Yeah.
But generally speaking, the 2 to 3 times a day, like even up to 5 times a day, would be kind of like the reps that you would want to build and work towards, right?
Yeah, and you know, but less than like 5 minutes or less.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right, guys, I got to go teach the mentorship.
Yay.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
for being here,
you.
as always.
Very
Good.
helpful. Thank
Yeah,
you.
Yeah.
good topics today. Really enjoyed it. We'll see you next time. Okay.
Thanks,
Mhm.
Shannon.
Bye.